What if I told you that the next financial crisis, the one we're all bracing for in 2026, won't be a random event? What if it's actually been engineered by the very systems that promise to protect us? Think about the inflation eating away at your paycheck, the debt crisis gripping entire nations, the looming recession that feels inevitable. These are not just abstract problems, they're the aftermath of decisions made long ago. But the real question is, who stands to gain when the next financial collapse happens? This isn't a what-if scenario. This is happening right now. And those in control are setting the stage for what will be the biggest collapse in history. In this video, we're going to expose the hidden forces shaping our financial world, forces that you can use to your advantage if you know where to look. Today, you'll learn how to profit in the 2026 financial crisis. And trust me, it's not by relying on traditional systems. The truth might shock you, but it's essential if you want to position yourself as the winner when the world is burning. Before we dive in, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for the unfiltered truth. You won't hear this anywhere else. Let's rewind the clock to the early 20th century. In 1929, the US stock market crashed. The Great Depression followed. On the surface, it looked like a failure of the economy, a chaotic mess that left millions unemployed. But beneath that chaos, there was a story of manipulation, elites rigging the game. The same elites who controlled the financial systems then still have their hands on the wheel today. Did the 1929 crash happen by accident? Absolutely not. The same pattern of manipulation and hidden debts paved the way for what we call a crash. But in reality, it was a premeditated transfer of wealth. The Federal Reserve, the biggest financial institution in the world, was at the center of it all. They allowed rampant speculation, debt accumulation, and poor regulation only to let the system collapse when they were ready to pounce on the aftermath. A controlled collapse. Fast forward to the 2008 financial crisis. It was just another accident, right? A byproduct of reckless subprime lending, mortgages bundled into toxic securities, and greedy banks betting on collapse. Yet, those who orchestrated the crisis were also the ones who made billions off it. The crash wasn't an accident. It was a predictable outcome, one that the richest players knew was coming. In 2008, global financial systems almost collapsed under the weight of their own debt. But instead of allowing the crash to wipe out their wealth, the elites manipulated the situation to bail themselves out while leaving the public to shoulder the debt. Banks and financial institutions were too big to fail, but the average citizen's home wasn't. In 2026, the situation will be far worse. The collapse will be even more devastating. But this time, the financial elites are already positioning themselves to profit again. Take a look at the debt today. The global debt reached $300 trillion by 2022, and the US national debt alone stands at over $31 trillion. This debt isn't just a number, it's a global ticking time bomb. We've seen the same story unfold before, decisions made behind closed doors. A system designed to fail, and once again, the masses bear the brunt of the collapse. But there's something different about this crash. This time, the global financial system is already on the brink, and the mechanism that's driving this crisis is even more complex than anything we've seen in the past. The next financial collapse will be different. It will be engineered not just by bad decisions or bad luck, but by a financial mechanism so complex, so powerful, it's been kept hidden in plain sight. A mechanism that has been in place for decades, slowly building up the pressure to burst in 2026. What's this mechanism? It's the global debt structure, and specifically how central banks have been using liquidity swaps to prop up economies. These swaps allow countries to exchange their debts and currency with central banks in ways that the public cannot see, all while hiding the fact that global economies are living in an illusion of solvency. Let's break it down. The central banks, like the US Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank, have entered into secret deals with other nations. These deals essentially allow other countries to hold onto the US dollar for temporary periods, while their own debt is passed around like a hot potato. This is what's been propping up economies across the world, but it's unsustainable. It's like building a house of cards that's only standing because no one wants to knock it over. The craziest part: these liquidity swaps don't just happen in the background, they're happening right now. At the end of 2022, the U.S. Federal Reserve conducted $1 trillion in these liquidity swaps. Yes, trillion. And countries like Japan and China have been doing the same, creating an interconnected system where the collapse of one country will lead to the fall of many others. The global debt is nearing $300 trillion. When this system crashes, there won't be any recovery period like in 2008. There will be global financial chaos, and it will be much worse than what we've seen before. But here's the twist: you won't believe the name behind this entire system. This isn't some shadowy banking cartel. It's not even just the central banks. It's the financial elites working behind the scenes to ensure they come out on top. And their plan is about to backfire in ways we cannot yet imagine. The receipt is wilder than you think. Stick around, because what's coming next is even more shocking. Now that we've seen the mechanism in place, the global debt structure and liquidity swaps, it's time to dive into the financial mechanics behind it all. Let's break down how this system works and why it's engineered to collapse. First, understand that the global debt system is interconnected. What happens in one country can impact every other nation. Central banks have orchestrated the system of debt swaps and currency exchanges to maintain the illusion of economic stability. When one country is struggling, it can temporarily exchange its currency for US dollars from the Federal Reserve, making it appear solvent. For example, in 2022, Japan's Bank of Japan performed $1.5 trillion in liquidity swaps with the Fed. This allowed Japan to temporarily hold on to dollars, masking the true extent of its debt. But this is just a short-term solution. The problem is that these swaps create an illusion that everything is fine, when, in reality, we're living on borrowed time. Now, let's talk about the numbers, because these are the real proof of just how unsustainable this system is. The total global debt in 2022 was around $300 trillion. The US alone is carrying over $31 trillion in debt. But the rest of the world isn't far behind. China, for example, holds more than $14 trillion in debt, and much of it is tied to the US dollar. Here's the kicker: this debt structure isn't something that can be paid off. The amount of global debt is growing faster than global GDP, meaning that we're borrowing more than we can pay back. It's like a giant game of financial Jenga, and every time a new debt is added, the tower grows taller and more unstable. But it gets worse. The US Federal Reserve has printed trillions of dollars over the past few years to maintain liquidity in the system. These actions have led to massive inflation, with the dollar losing value faster than ever before. It's the same pattern we saw in the 1920s and 2008. This time, however, the effects will be global. Every central bank in the world is tied into the same system, which means when the US dollar collapses, so does the entire global financial system. This collapse will be faster, more brutal, and more widespread than anything we've seen before. To make matters worse, this system has led to moral hazard. Because central banks are willing to step in and bail out failing economies, there is no incentive for governments to fix their underlying financial problems. The system has become a giant Ponzi scheme, where debt is continually rolled over, and the rich and powerful get richer while everyone else suffers. In 2026, when the global financial system finally collapses, we'll see a repeat of the 2008 crash, only worse. The question is, how can you profit from this inevitable collapse? Here's the thing: the collapse we're about to face will be faster, more brutal, and more global than anything we've seen before. Thanks to technology, a financial crash won't just affect one nation, it will hit every corner of the globe at once. This is a global collapse in real time. But there's hope. The very system that's built on borrowed time can also be manipulated, and it's those who understand this system who will come out on top. The question is, will you be one of them? Think about it. When the next crash happens, it will be a shockwave felt across every financial market. But those who have prepared will not just survive, they will profit. You can be one of the people who understands how this collapse works and use it to capitalize on the panic. Don't be left holding the bag when the collapse happens. Prepare now. Sound familiar? The game is rigged, but the good news is, it's possible to play it and win. The elites might have created a system built to implode, but with the right knowledge, you can profit while everyone else loses. As you prepare for the 2026 collapse, think about this. Are we wiser now, or are we walking the same path in better suits? Share your thoughts and skepticism below. If you want more of this unfiltered truth, hit that subscribe button. The next crash is coming, and it's time to make sure you're not left holding the bag.